the conclusion of round 1 of Barcelona. It's time for our teams and drivers to pack up and travel north across Europe to Belgium for the next round, round 2 at Zolder. And the weather today at Zolder for the next round of the GT3 Championship with Apex Online Racing is going to be a wet one. It's been raining all day and there's no sign of the weather letting up anytime soon. So the drivers will be looking forward to a whole 60-minute race plus qualifying and practice in damp, rainy conditions. The track very wet, very slippy, so it's going to be a real challenge. Coming into this round, with only one round complete, the top 10 of the Drivers' Championship is pretty much the top 10 that finished last time out at Barcelona. Daniel Blomqvist came in first place, but since the end of round 1 and moving into round 2, Daniel's been moved up to a higher tier. He was way too fast for the rest of the field, so he's been moved on. And that really puts Kirill Pojarski in number 725 Lamborghini into prime position. Conor McCarthy came in third at Barcelona, so the season 4 GT3 champion for tier 7 in third place and will inherit second following Daniel's exit. Michael van Rooyen was fourth in his Ferrari. John Becker was 5th in his Ferrari, and Sindri Ragnarsson in the Mercedes came in 6th place. Hubert Eichner in the Aston Martin was 7th. Thomas Sajek was the first finisher of a fully registered team. He came in 8th place. And Antonius McCormick in the Sol Nissan in Tier 7, he came in 9th. Daniel Merchant in the Badgers & Badgers Lexus came in 10th. Badgers & Badgers not an officially registered team, so won't be counting towards the team championship at this time. And moving on to the teams championship, it's a little bit of an empty table. Still only 2 officially registered teams going into round 2. SVR team in front with 65 points, mainly thanks to Sajak's high placing in 8th. Whereas the Beeswax Racing team, they're in second place with 38 points, with both their drivers outside the top 10. And as we described earlier, qualifying taking place in very wet and rainy conditions. And let's follow our pole position setter for today as he completes a lap of the Zolder circuit. Dami Ayo just on the start-finish straight, coming up towards across the start-finish line and commences his lap. Up to turn 1, Kirsti. Big wide open left-hander. You can clip the curb on the inside and take the car all the way to the outside curb, but Dami electing not to do that. Then it's into the slightly challenging line 2, Sterrenwachtbocht. A very, very long corner, leads straight into turn 3, the Kanalbocht. Short straight, braking just as you hit the side road on the left there, and through the Lucien Bianchi-Bocht. And then it's a few seconds respite up the straight towards the first chicane, the Kleiner chicane, this being turn 5. Brake hard, very difficult to get the braking right for this chicane. Dami catching a bit of curb, as many do. It's up the rise as you go through Bootit and underneath the bridge, dropping down into Terlammenbocht, a complex of corners featuring the second chicane, and then leading into a wider right-hander. Drivers have to be careful not to overstep the curbs and go off the track. And then leading into a left-hander that leads into Walderbergerspeldbocht, turn 8, they're hairpin, and then onto the Jochen-Rechtsbocht. And then finally up towards the Jackie Ichtbocht. A lot of the corners named after famous racing drivers here at this Belgium track. And Dami comes out the final corner and over the start-finish line to set a pole setting lap time of 1:35.892. So looking at the results from qualifying, it's Dami Ayo in pole position with a time of 1:35.892, which we just watched. Dami the only driver to get under the 1:36 mark, with Sindri Ragnarsson in second place, just behind him with a 1:36.090. And then it's second down to 10th place, all in the 1:36 bracket, and then from 11th down to 20th, it's in the 1:37 bracket. And then with last 4 drivers, Kenton Robinson, Simon Priest, Eduardo Trepiano and Dominic Hees, just outside the 1:37 mark, but the first 20 drivers covered by just 2 seconds, so qualifying extremely tight here in Tier 7. Let's see how the race goes next. Drivers now lining up side by side on the start-finish straight, ready for the off. Io in pole position, Ragnarsson alongside. The rain is falling. The weather report indicates that that's going to continue throughout the entire duration of this race. So the start's going to be a challenging time. It's usually the time when accidents happen, but the leaders around the first corner okay in one piece. Io moving away slightly from Ragnarsson in second place. 2 Mercedes, 1 and 2. Is the Mercedes the secret weapon for Zolder? Moving back down further into the pack to see how the race starts for the majority of the field. The middle of the pack being the most dangerous place to be at the start of the race. And we're with McCarthy there in the centre of the screen, getting a good start, moving in the middle. That is dangerous to go 3 wide in the first corner, but it works. Number of cars going wide there. Oh, McCarthy goes off. It was too dangerous. Can put yourself into compromising position, trying to go 3 wide into the first corner. But didn't get a clear look at what happened. Just saw the car spade off onto the grass. Nins there, just in shot of Beeswax Racing. Yet again came into this race claiming 0 practice, and yet he's just outside the top 10. Computer always gets confused on the opening lap. Looks like there was a bit of an accident behind Nins then. Looked like Hume may have just gone off track. Nins into 11th at the moment. Now the computer sorted itself out. Remember, no practice everybody. That's what he claims every week. Didn't look too bad for the opening lap there. There was 1 or 2 cars off, but I didn't see any major incidents of multiple cars colliding with each other. And with cold tyres on a very wet track, it's not unusual to have 1 or 2 cars sliding off. So I think all round, the drivers should congratulate themselves on a pretty decent opening lap. Belokan, I think he's had the felt tips out, hasn't he? That's a custom skin on Belokan's car. Must be a bit of a motorbike fan. The doctor is a reference to motorbike racing. That's about as far as my knowledge goes. But Belokan in 3rd place in the Black Monster Bentley. Does this mean that the Bentleys will not be teaming up? Because there's certainly no room on that car for SpongeBob SquarePants. It's Vieira in the Lexus, just ahead. Hees in the 155 McLaren, and just behind Hees is Pojarski. Pojarski was the 2nd place car last week, and I think the weather having the intended effect. A lot of the drivers who were right at the forefront last week, much further down the field, and I think that's something that we're after. Too often in the championships, if it's fair weather every round, the drivers that can drive well in the good weather tend to pull away in the championship, and it's all over pretty quick. But this is really going to mix things up, give those drivers that perhaps were not so high up in the championship a chance to move forward and keep it very much alive, based on what we can see so far. It's McCormick again, always seems to feature right behind the Lexus of Ivanovs, who in turn is right behind the Nils Nins and the Beeswax Racing. Finally had a week to sort out their livery, and the Beeswax Racing, under the insistence of Nils, with the Angry Badgers, I believe it is. Angry Beavers. Oh, he's going to pull me up on that one. Beeswax Racing gone with Angry Beavers. I believe this is a cartoon on Cartoon Network. You'll have to consult with Nins, please, for some references on that. Just joining now with Nin's teammate Steve Bezic in the other Beeswax Racing. Number 833 down in 20th, did qualify in 15th. But already, just a few laps in, slipped backwards. Having a difficult time with traffic. And a few bumps at the start of the race. Just 3 laps in. Oh, and there's spins in front there, so had to get out the throttle. McCarthy again off the track, having a very difficult time in this race in these weather conditions. The Lamborghini quite a handful, but that has let Tripiana through in the Porsche, number 17. That pace will have to be regained. And they're coming up side by side up to the chicane. It's like Bezik's managed to force Tripiana off line. Oh, he's come across him. Oh, into the wall. That's not good. Into the gravel trap, so that will cost them both places. Yep. Yellon goes through in the Ferrari. Capitalising on that coming together, coming up to the chicane. Meanwhile, McCarthy closes up behind Bezic as well. Having a very difficult race already, only 3 laps in. McCarthy slipping all the way towards the back of the field. As I was just saying, the Lamborghini has a reputation being a very difficult car to handle, especially in wet conditions. It can really snap on you, I understand. Bezic goes wide, McCarthy goes wide as well. And the Lexus of Danny Merchant sees an opportunity to try and get through. Side by side, coming up to the first turn. But, McCarthy gets through ahead. But he goes wide again, picks up some gravel and sand, and Danny Merchant tries again to get through. Looks like this time he might have the position. Is he on a better line? He is. Danny Merchant got better speed there around that sweeping set of corners. So McCarthy slips backwards. I'm sure he won't be content with staying there for long. And hovering around in the background, Declan Hume in the Lamborghini. I'd say the Lamborghini living up to its reputation. I think the Lamborghinis were qualified in 3rd and 4th, but already they're in 23rd and 24th. Just 4 laps into the race. Perhaps not the most ideal car for this track and these weather conditions. Pedro Vieira, another gaggle of cars led by Nins at the front. Nins in the McLaren, followed by Ivanovs in a Lexus, McCormick in the bright pink Nissan. And Vieira there went a bit wide onto the curbing and the gravel. So the Mercedes of Coutiard trying to have a look around the outside. And it looks like Vieira's managing to get better traction on the inside line there. Carry that speed through, keep Coutiard behind. Just a little while longer, but you can see a little gap's opened up after Vieira caught that bit of curb. So just a small gap, 2 seconds now to the back of McCormick. Nins there off to the side. Ivanovs having a look. I'd say Ivanovs is through there. So Ivanovs in the Lexus moves up into 8th place. Meanwhile up front it's now Balocon in the Black Monster. Bentley in the lead. Ragnarsson in 2nd place. And Agner in 3rd. Agner, one of the higher place finishers last week, so probably going to do him some good in the championship if he can get a good result, because the other championship leaders from last week would be fair to say are struggling a bit further down the field. These 3, Balocon, Ragnarsson and Agner, slightly pulling away from John Becker in 4th. Gap now 3.6 seconds. You can just see the gap then. I'm not sure we just saw the Aston Martin of Aigner just ahead of John. It's on lap 6. Nins still defending from Vieira in the Lexus, but the Lexus is all over him. Keeping it clean, Lexus makes a dive up the inside. That looks a good pass as he overshot. He has. Off track. Off into the gravel, so Vieira drops back some places. That puts Coutillard directly behind Nins. Vieira dropping out of 11th. Coutillard moves into that position. Very difficult in these conditions to judge your braking correctly when you want to make a push against another driver. Just saw Vieira in the background there. Looks like he's falling behind Heath. Yep, so Vieira down to 13. Lost 2 places trying to make that pass on Nins and overshooting the track. Ivanov's still leading from McCormick. If I remember correctly, was it Danny Merchant and McCormick last week who were battling for almost the entire race? It looks like McCormick's found a new driver to torture for an hour, as he's constantly in the mirrors looking for a way through. Coutillard in 10th place. Got past Nins eventually. Hasn't moved too far away from Nins. There's only 0.9 of a second between them. But it looks like McCormick's trying to have a look at the inside for turn 1. If he doesn't overcook it and overshoot, he keeps it in. And Coutillard follows McCormick through, so that's 2 through on the Lexus of Ivanov's in one corner. Ivanov's perhaps forced onto perhaps not the ideal line to try and defend, and that compromised his speed all the way through. And Nins is on the back of him as well now. 4 of these very close to each other, and the Lexus of Vieira in the background trying to close up too. I look like somebody went across the chicane the wrong way there. Maybe just to make sure they didn't outbrake themselves. It's the tightest battle on track is this group. McCormick, Ivanov's, Coutillard, Nins and Vieira. Looks like the Lexus of Vieira got past Nins in the background. Need some Angry Beaver power to power Nins on. And closing up on Nins is Sajak of the SVT Racing Ferrari. So these two representing the only 2 registered teams at the moment in the championship. SVT came away last week with a big haul of points. Quite a big gap between both these teams. But still early days. This is only round 2 of the championship. So both teams still with a lot to play for. With the other SVT Racing Ferrari of Yellon down in 22nd. Bezic currently made his way up to 16th, so only 4 places behind his teammate at the moment. So a good haul of points possible for Beeswax Racing. If Yellon is unable to move forward from 22nd, there's a 3 and a bit second gap for Yellon, but he is past Heath. Oh, bump there. I think perhaps Nins was a bit surprised when Sajak went through. Just a little tap on the back as he turned in. It looks like they both came away in one piece. Aigner now right in the back of Duque. So he's free. Duque, Aigner and Ayo all very, very close to each other. Oh, tap on the back then. I think Ayo perhaps misjudged the braking a little bit. Didn't look like too big a hit, so hopefully they've got away with no damage. Oh, and that was a rear end slipped on Eigner then. He caught it, but that tiny mistake allowed Io to get through. Duque can breathe a little easier as the gap opens up now to 1.8 seconds. But Ruinen closing right in on Steve Bezic in 14th place. And Ruinen in 15th. So Bezic now just 2 places behind his teammate. But I think there's quite a time gap. Coming down the start-finish straight, McCarthy in the background. Ruinen looks to be pushing hard to try and get past this McLaren. Oh, disaster for the McLaren there. It slid straight off. You see it sliding on the grass. It's in the worst place possible because it can't really reverse or it'll come straight back into the path of other drivers. You see the damage on the side there to McLaren from the incident early in the race with the Porsche. Finally gets turned around, but how much time was lost there and how many places? Just slid straight on the chicane and back behind Merchant, Yellon, Priest, McCarthy. I think that was 5 places lost. Stuck on the chicane, disaster. At the same time as Bezic was slipping into the wall near the chicane and getting all sorts of problems. McCormick closing in on Erty, as Erty had a problem because I don't think he was that close to McCormick previously. That was just 0.9 of a second. Another Aston Martin, the Aston Martin of Erty just in front of McCormick now. He's going to make a move on turn 1, looks too far away. Has a little look. Seems to be carrying very good speed through turn 1. He's going to have a look down the inside of Erty and makes it work. And Nissan proving quite quick. And makes that look quite simple. I can assure you, having been in the race, it was not that simple to get around those corners that quick. So McCormick moves up into 6th place. Erty not giving up, having a look at the inside, but too far back. Of all the big hitters from round 1, McCarthy, who finished 3rd, is currently in 15th place. And Pojarski, who finished 2nd. And with the moving up of the winner from last week to a higher tier, Pojarski effectively the championship leader going into this round, down in 20th. So the rain really affecting the field. Ragnarsson, who did well last week, down in 23rd. I believe Danny Merchant was doing okay last week. He's in 18th. I think Van Ruinen was in the top 10. He's in 14th. So real, as usual, just like in the real world and in Formula 1 and so forth, the rain really having quite a chaotic effect on the results for this race, but it's the drivers that can keep the car on the track who'll be making the places up. McCormick's one of those now, moving into 5th place. Gap back to Erty is already over a second. So McCormick getting the Nissan working well in these conditions. Now Joan Balocon coming into the pits. A little bit of damage to the front of the Bentley. Number of drivers reported after the race that, well, what can frankly be said is their own lack of preparation. When they pitted, they ended up putting on slicks. and then had to either try and get round the race on the slicks, or do what perhaps was the more sensible idea, is put the right tyres on and pit again. And that is down to the driver. You can set your pit stops up in advance, and it was well known that this was going to be a fully wet race. So, unfortunately, the blame must lie behind the wheel if you pit and you put the wrong tyres on. And I understand a number of drivers lost a lot of positions for putting slicks on. But I think also one driver said they did the entire race on slicks, which I'm not entirely sure was really the best strategy, because this is definitely not a dry track suitable for the slick tyres. And Roynen's got a stop-go penalty of 30 seconds. That will be for speeding in the pit lane. And given Roynen's position of currently a P16, that may well place him right at the back of the field. So a disastrous round 2 for Van Rooyen. Nils Nins here was found guilty of attempted showboating post-race. There was a bit of an investigation, and Nins confessed to moving into the lead of the race by not taking his pit stop for ages. We believe with the express intent of just getting into the highlight show, to making sure he got a mention. So please feel free to leave in the comments what you think of such despicable levels to go to, just to make sure that you get coverage in the highlight show. Well, you already had enough coverage from all the action that was taking place in the midfield battle earlier on in the race. But behind, McCarthy is in the pits, just looking at the gap there, wondering if it was close. And that is where Balocon's race goes disastrously wrong. He is back in the pits. He must have either the wrong tyres or a bit of a fault to be straight back into the pits for a second time. And that is probably his race over. So he's leading for a long time, but 2 pit stops versus everybody else's single pit stop. And Rooyen having a very difficult race, down in 21st, 25 seconds behind Balocon. Balocon's had 2 pit stops, so Balocon ended up in 20th place from a leader, and he's in the pits again. Complete mystery as to what is going wrong with Balocon, but this is his 3rd pit stop. There looks to be a bit of damage on that car all round. There's no indication of a penalty, but Balocon in and out of the pits. His race well and truly over. Aigner in the Aston Martin, who is being very closely followed by Becker in the Ferrari number 77. So effectively I believe these two are fighting for the lead. Aigner finished well last week, so he's going to be in a strong position in the Drivers' Championship if he can keep this up. And it's McCormick in 4th, who's doing another really strong drive this week in the Nissan. He's now dropped Duque by 2 seconds. And if he can keep this up and finish in 3rd, it'll be a very good result. Not many laps to go, and not many close battles on the track. So Io closing in on Projaski. Projaski's made a bit of a recovery drive lately. He was right down the back of the field, Projaski, looking like it wasn't going to go well, but he's gotten all the way back up to 10th, which I think is evidence that in these sort of conditions you need to keep going, you need to keep trying, and you need to stay on the track. And if you keep doing that, eventually something may come to you, and that has proven the case with Projaski. Could have been a really bad result for him this week, but he's kept going, and he's looking like he's, well, Io might have something to say about it, but he's looking like he might get inside the top 10. But based on Projaski's, oh, Projaski does make a mistake. He's just wide then. Open the door, and Io didn't need a second invitation, straight through. And the pace of these two, I think, is quite even, so Projaski will find it difficult to get back. So Io to 10th, Projaski to 11th, and McCarthy, unbelievably, has also driven his way back up to currently 12th. Big gap between what is now going to be Projaski and McCarthy, so I can't see McCarthy catching Przaszki before the end of a race, but still to end up in 12th place is not too bad. So coming towards the end of the race now, Aigner in the Aston Martin leading the race. So a good drive in these conditions to take the head of the field. In second place at the moment is Becker, and that's a very disappointed, no doubt, Belokin behind Becker. Not too sure how many pit stops he did, because for some reason the computer's not telling us when they pit, but it was a lot of pit stops. Further one, nearly 2 seconds behind Becker. It's a strong drive by Antonis McCormick in the Nissan. It's coming in third. I think they have a strong championship position after this result for McCormick. Fourth place, SpongeBob SquarePants Special, Duque. Again, a strong drive from the Bentley driver. And fifth is Coutillard in the Mercedes AMG. Vieira in the Lexus down in sixth. Again, featured a lot earlier on in the race as they were battling for the midfield. Urti, I think, may have slipped back a little bit to seventh. Was a little bit further up the field earlier on in the race, but still inside the top 10 to match their top 10 finish last week. Ivanov's in the second Lexus. In eighth place, Nins, after his exploits leading the race for such a long time whilst dodging his pit stop, down into ninth, but looks safe in that position. Has closed up the gap a little to Ivanov's, but I'm not sure there's enough time left to get past. And Io, after his pass on Przaszki earlier on, looks to be holding on to 10th. The gap now back to Przaszki, 8 seconds. So definitely Io moved away once he got through. So 33 laps into the race, and the two SVT Racing Ferraris are together. Yelon in number 65 and Sajak in number 88, and Van Rooyen just behind them in the other Ferrari, number 777. I don't know if these two drivers for SVT Racing will be working with each other, but it does look like Yelon let Sajak through. And Rooyen in the background there. Oh, I don't know what happened. He maybe put a tire on the grass, but Van Rooyen span out then, so the two SVT Racing Ferraris move away. And Van Rooyen, his afternoon gets from bad to worse. It's just not going to happen for Van Rooyen today. Up ahead, Ivanovs has managed to close in on Urti with just a handful of laps left. Is he going to be able to pull something out of the bag and get an extra place? But I think if Ivanovs is waiting for Urti to make a mistake, it may be a long wait. Urti, very experienced, been involved with Apex Online Racing since 2012, so that's at least 8 years. Possibly a newcomer though to ACC. Bit of grass there for Ivanovs. And Van Rooyen in the background, but somehow he's made that work. The Lexus going through on Urti. So Urti does lose a place right at the end of the race. Just about 3 or 4 laps left to go, perhaps at most. So Urti going to try and get back at Ivanovs. Certainly doable. It's not a place you'd want to lose this close to the finish. So Urti bound to try and fight all the way. Aigner looks to be in a strong position to take victory. 7 seconds clear of, well, McCormick's ended up in second place. So what a drive by McCormick in the Nissan. Up to second. Becker in third place in the Ferrari. Must be close to the final lap now. SpongeBob SquarePants is in 4th. Cotillard in 5th. And having Lexuses in 6th and 7th. With Vieira and Ivanovs, who just moved past 30 at the move we saw just a few minutes ago. 30 now slipping a little bit further behind Ivanovs. He's not going to fall into the clutches of Nins, is he, before the race is through? I just saw Nins. That's Nins going backwards. You saw it here first, folks. Nins definitely won't be closing in on 30 with a lap to go. Having a little bit of a slide. He better be careful. Io doesn't get him. In fact, the fireworks are going off, so it looks like it's all over. Just got to get around these couple of corners. So Nins, by the skin of his teeth, hangs on to 9th place. So it's over the line, and the victory for Aigner in round 2 of the GT3 Championship for Season 5. Well, I think we're going to have to wait to see who's taking the lead in the Drivers' Championship, but a real mix-up in results for this event. I think the rains had the intended consequences of really mixing up the Drivers' Championship. Big loser today was Balocon. Don't know what happened. Saw him in the pits at least 3 times. Von Ruinen, I believe, was in the top 10 last week as well, down in 18th. So, difficult results for some of the drivers today. And we'll have a look at what that does to the Drivers' Championship and the Teams' Championship between SVT Racing and Beeswax Racing in a moment. So looking towards the official results for round 2 of the GT3 Championship for Tier 7, Hubert Aigner comes in 1st place, will get himself 100 points to the Drivers' Championship. Antonius McCormick with a drive right from the back of the field all the way up to 2nd place. And John Becker finishing in 3rd place in his Ferrari 488 GT3. Manuel Dukes in 4th, Nectaria Cotillard in 5th, Pedro Vieira was 6th, Artus Ivanov was 7th, Urti finished in 8th after Artus got past him just towards the end of the race. Nils Nins managed to finish in 9th, and Danny Ayo rounded out the top 10. Those big losers, perhaps from last week, who finished much higher up the field, Conal McCarthy managed to come in 11th, and Kirill Prozharsky finished in 12th. Other losers down the field, Michael van Rooyen in 18th, poor Lev Balocon, who led from early in the race for quite some time, but ended up doing at least 3 pit stops that we managed to catch, finishes all the way down in 22nd. And Sindri Ragnarsson, who looked to be doing well at the start of the race but dropped right down the field towards the back, finishes in 23rd, and the non-finishers were Dominic Hiss and Declan Hume. Moving on to the Drivers' Championship after 2 rounds, Hubert Aigner moves 6 places up the table into 1st place following victory at Zolder in the rain. John Becker is in 2nd place in the Drivers' Championship, managing to place 3rd at Zolder. Antonius McCormick, after a sterling drive all the way up to 2nd place from the back of the field, moves up to 3rd place on the Drivers' Championship, also moving up 6 places. Kirill Prozharsky, who finished 2nd last time out at Spain, moves down to 4th on the Drivers' Championship, dropping 2 places. Conal McCarthy also drops down the table a little bit, but he managed to finish 11th tonight, just ahead of Prozharsky. In 6th place in the Drivers' Championship is Nectaria Cotillard, who managed to finish 5th at Zolder. 7th is Daniel Blomqvist, who's no longer in the league and will probably drop out of the top 10 championship next week, but such was his points haul in the first round, he's still there. 8th place is Michael van Rooyen, who had a really disappointing night, finished 18th at Zolder, dropping him all the way down to 8th on the Drivers' Championship. In 9th place, Manuel Dukes comes into the top 10 following a good placing at Zolder into 4th. And also entering the top 10 in 10th place, it's Urti, who managed to hang on to 8th place at the end of the race. Moving on to the Teams' Championship, a new team was registered after this event had completed. So TWG Motorsports is made up of Dami Ayo and Sindri Ragnarsson, making a very strong team in the Mercedes. Both those drivers have been placing well in the opening event, so they move straight to the top of the team's championship with 153 points. In second place, it's SVR team in the Ferraris, made of Thomas Sajak and Daniel Yalon with 119 points. But thanks to the high placing of Nins, who finished 9th at today's event, Beeswax Racing closed right in on SVRT with 115 points. So Nins and Steve Bezic right behind the SVR team, and the gap not too great to TWG Motorsports. Let's hope some more teams register before next week's race to make the team's championship even more interesting. Looking forward to the next round of a championship. Round 3 will take place at Kailami, that race to take place on Tuesday the 29th of September. Qualifying will commence at 7:30, followed immediately by the race, and this race will be a 90-minute endurance event with refueling permitted, so fuel strategies may come to the fore, with only the Bentley able to complete the whole distance of a race without refueling. The weather prediction for Kailami is for drizzle, so not the rain that we've seen at Zolder, but a steady drizzle which will probably make the track just greasy but not wet. Slicks will be the order of the day, but the grip will be treacherous, and we can look forward to more drivers perhaps making mistakes and creating opportunities up and down the field. Will McCormick pull off another storming drive from the back of the field all the way to the front, or will McCarthy and Brzezinski reassert their grip at the front of a race in slightly better driving conditions? Make sure you tune in next week and find out what happens. Thanks for watching, and please leave a like and a message if you enjoyed the race. See you soon.